Well, we got some Project L news. Originally, I expected all of this to come out during EVO, but Riot pushed it out a week earlier. In case you missed it, Riot published 2 videos on Project L. The first was an update on the gameplay, and the second was a full match between 4 riders. But that's not the only piece of news we got. Because with those videos, an embargo got lifted and a whole bunch of creators released their videos where they tested the game. So I went around the internet and I gathered all the information from all the possible sources. And now, after I bunched it together, we can have a look at what we actually learned. So let's start with the devlog that Riot released. They started it all with a big reveal that a lot of people expected. Project L is not just a tag-based fighting game. It is a 2v2 team-based fighting game, where each player gets to pilot a champion on the same team, or on the opposite team, so you can play with your friends or against them. In more detail, the duo mode functions like tag team wrestling. One player is active on stage and with a press of a button they can swap out for their friend. This has some tactical advantages like extending combos, preparing some setups, or you can tag in for your friend with a block to save you. It is currently planned to support 1v1, 2v2 or 1v2. Which means that even in a friend group of 3, you will still have fun. In their devlog, Riot realizes that making a team-based fighting game is a challenge. But so far, they feel confident in the way they are handling it. And this is where we can chip in with some player feedback which we got from other creators in their own videos. What we learned is that in theory, the game should be very easy to pick up. That's because the controls are very simple. However, the game is also very complex. So complex, in fact, that some people got worried. Some people believe that those who know fighting games will just absolutely annihilate anyone else who is even just trying the game out. I mean, this should be expected in any game. If you know the genre, you should be better than a new player. But to counteract this, fighting games usually give you some simple blocks to give you a chance, so that the player in the defensive position at least gets a chance to assess the situation. Apparently here, in the current build, it was very easy to just lock your opponent in a really bad position. And that's because defensive abilities in Project L cost a lot of resources. So you can block a really good player, like once or twice, and then you're done. Again, to a certain degree, this should be normal, but some people believe that Riot should tune it all down, because right now, everything in the game is very aggressive. To give you a bit more detail on how easy to pick up the game it is while staying complex. Right now you have 3 basic attack buttons, that is light, mid and heavy, 2 special attacks and 1 tag button. All of this will fit on the normal controller layout really well. You don't have to do any crazy button combinations because everything has its own separate button. On top of this, they also dribble in some unique mechanics. For example, you can charge up your heavy attack for a critical strike that will break any guard. So again, there are ways to bypass a defensive player. Tagging also acts as an offensive ability. You also charge up your ultimate bar, which you can use to perform an ultimate attack, or apparently you can spend it all and perform a sort of an ultimate block. But this is still just a beginning, there is a lot more. And if you want all the technical details about how the fighter behaves from a person who actually knows what they are talking about, Maximilian released an awesome video where he talked about his experience. Now moving on, Riot also revealed their fuse system. To simplify this behaves like your rune system in League. Except it's only one rune, it's really like you're picking a special ability. And in the build they tested, they had multiple choices. Assist attack gave you an extra attack when you were tagging in. Double down was an improved tagging that allowed you to tag in during ultimates. Double assist is one that allowed you to tag in multiple times in a quick succession, which means that you could go for big combos split between multiple champions. But there was also Fury, which just gave you extra stats whenever you were below 40% health. So, if you're not good at fighting games, that one might be a safe bet. But that's pretty much all the news we got when it comes to the gameplay. So far, people feel really solid about it. But I highly recommend watching videos from the other creators for more context. But we are still not done with the news, because I'm a weird guy and I look for things that other people don't look into, because why would they? So, in the background you might have noticed 2 stages. One from Ionia and one from Piltover. We talked about this in the past. The Ionian one is pretty much unchanged besides some minor details in the background. Also, unfortunately, this time we couldn't see the Cloud Drinker flying in the sky. But the Piltover stage already started implementing some Easter eggs. For example, you can see more background characters now, which also includes some goons who are stealing from House Talis, which is Jace's family. You can tell that they pulled off a heist because they took the vault door with the hammer sigil with them. And if you look to the left, you might see that they are loading all the loot onto a ship. Further to the left, you might also notice some beer bottles. The label reads Heim and Lag, and I'm pretty sure it is Heimerlager. On that side, you might also notice some Jinx tags. But the more interesting reference is on the other side. It's right there with the big sprayed wall. Cool fact about that one is that this is a scene from Legends of Runeterra. It is the same wall with the sprinting wardens. And I have to say, I love how Riot is tying all these places together, even in an early preview game. Another thing we could technically mention are the recolors. As it is in pretty much every fighter, when two players are playing the same champion, they have to get different colors for visibility. In Riot's showcase, we could see the white color, and also the green and purple colors, which seem to be a reference to the Shadow Isles color palette. And in the future, I would actually love it if the recolors were actually based on regions. Also, since the game was confirmed to be free to play, I am kinda expecting the monetization to be around skins, which would mean that the skins would also need to have recolors, which would be awesome, because that's some free chroma skins for us. Speaking of which, there are two big graphical upgrades in this update. First of all, the shadows got bumped up. Now you can feel a bit more contrast, which makes the game feel a bit less washed up, while emphasizing the cartoony look. Also, a big reason why the animations just look better is that all the champions now have facial expressions. If you look at the last videos, you'll see that their faces just didn't move. But now it's all rigged up and suddenly everything looks more alive. Now, another thing we can talk about is the UI. It is good, it is simple, it is readable, and most of all, it fits for a fighting game. But I have to say, it surprised me that this doesn't really feel like League of Legends. It feels more like esports, the UI. It's the kind of UI you would see on big stream tournaments like LCS, which, to be fair, might be what Riot is going for. Maybe they do want to separate Project L from League of Legends, while keeping the universe and the roster the same. But so many other fighting games are going for this style that it doesn't feel like it's gonna be that special. With that said, the UI is still very crispy, and at the end of the day, the UI doesn't really matter. Also, it's funny that their main tag is "Let's go", because that's a competitive thing. Lastly, Project L also has its own website. There you can see all the videos we got, some high quality screenshots, but more importantly, at the bottom you can see that the website links to the League of Legends lore, indicating that the story of League of Legends might play some part in this game, but also it shows us all the locked-in champions with some description. However, there is the total of 14 open slots. This is most likely a placeholder, but I wonder if Riot is aiming for 14 champions at launch. After all, it would make sense to have a bigger roster in a 2v2 game. You technically need a bigger roster to keep the champion diversity. But what is surprising is that we know more than just 3 champions. Right now, there is only Darius, Echo, and Ahri, and one more champion that should be revealed during EVO. I doubt it's gonna be Illaoi, because technically that would not be a reveal. We already know that Illaoi is coming. Also, we saw Jinx in some of the previous videos. So either we are getting a Katarina reveal because she appeared for a split of a second during the original anniversary video, or we are getting someone brand new besides all of those I mentioned. Either way, you can probably expect another video on it when it happens. But for now, that is all the important bits we got. We should also mention that there will be a playable demo at EVO, which means that a lot of feedback will surface next week. But despite that, I wouldn't get my hopes up for any potential release dates. I'm pretty sure it is not coming soon. I don't think we are necessarily in the Riot MMO territory of release dates, but I'm also not saying we are not there.